If you're trying to grow your shoulders, just like me, just like pretty much every other dude and dudess that's trying to get jacked in the gym, these are 9 terrible habits that are destroying your shoulder gains. Dum, dum, dum. The first tip is a pretty basic one, quite common sense when you think about it. There's a lot of people trying to curl up their dumbbells to do shoulder press, and I don't know why. They'll get their dumbbells, they'll curl them up, and then they'll be like, all right, let's do some overhead presses. The thing is, when you get strong, you're going to need to deal with some bigger dumbbells, some 30s, some 40s, or maybe just some 20s, and you may not be able to curl them up anymore. And if you're relying on your curling strength to get some dumbbells up just to press, that's not going to be an efficient way to train. So here is how we deal with heavier dumbbells as we get stronger. So let me actually grab some heavier dumbbells that I can't curl. So 30s. So I cannot curl these dumbbells. Here's proof. Cannot curl 30s, right? But I can press 30s. And if you're still trying to curl up your dumbbells, like I see a lot of people get into the gym and they're kind of like struggling. I can just get up to my knees. I can't get them up to a place where I need to press. So we put them on the ends of our knees and we do one at a time, grabbing the tops of the dumbbells one at a time, all the way up. So that gets all the way to my shoulder. So does the next one. And then from here, I get into position. Well, my shoulders just broke. Did you hear that click? Yeah. And then I press. And then when I finish, I like to bring my knees up and go down like that to kind of soften the blow. So there's your first tip. Pretty common sense, but makes a big difference. Second habit that we need to break is setting the bench at a 90-degree angle. So this is the standard bench that people will do shoulder presses on. There's even one that's about this high. This part's cut off so your head can lean back if it needs to. That's made for shoulder pressing. But we now know from science and evidence that this is not actually that optimal for us training our shoulders. The reasoning why is it doesn't really lengthen our anterior deltoids as much. So if we're sitting like this, first of all, it doesn't feel very comfortable. And if I'm going to get my shoulder blades, my dumbbells up to my shoulders, I feel like I'm gonna fall forward. I have to bring my dumbbells all the way back here so that I can press. My shoulder blades are down and my chest is really out. And that's okay, but it's not really a position that I want to press from. And I'm kind of pressing the dumbbells from like behind myself. Because if I bring them anywhere forward, it feels like I'm gonna fall forward or I'm gonna press forward. And if we look at it from an anatomical perspective, with the anterior deltoid, if we're pressing from here, like the dumbbells, because they have to be up so we don't fall forward, if we're here, our anterior deltoid that we're pressing from isn't being optimally positioned. So we want the kind of hand in front, and we kind of want to be leant back a little bit so we can get this anterior deltoid, which is what the presses grow, lengthened. So we can get full range of motion down here, but I can't bring the dumbbells down here if I'm sitting fully upright. So this is what we want to do. I want to bring this back, just one click, or whatever your bench allows. If we go back another one, that's a bit too much. That's kind of like, it's getting close to an incline dumbbell chest press. We don't want to hit that too much. We're still trying to train shoulders here. So I like to go here. And with this, I like to actually bring it up one because it pushes us down into the seat, giving us more stability and more opportunity to provide more force and get jacked. So if I'm here, now I can lean back a little bit and put the dumbbells in a position here where I'm lengthening the anterior deltoid in a better place. And when I'm pressing, I can press from here. Even if it gets heavier, I can still bring the dumbbells down here without kind of wanting to fall forward. So a bit of a lengthy kind of second point, but here we are. That's the habit that we need to break. Third habit that we need to break is doing half reps. Let me show you what I mean. And don't pretend like you don't know what I mean. These reps, I see you in the gym. I talk to my clients. I talk to people, mate, and all we do is press like this. Let me tell you why we shouldn't be doing that. When we're trying to train our shoulders with a press, we're trying to grow the anterior deltoid, the front. We're not doing lateral raises that works the lateral head or medial deltoid. We're trying to grow the front of the shoulders, pressing. And we know from research that we want to get our muscles into the lengthened position if we want to try and optimize hypertrophy. And if we're doing these half reps here, our anterior deltoid isn't getting that deep stretch, that lengthening. If we get to the bottom, all the way down here, bottom of the rep, now that muscle is in a place where it's lengthening and we're getting more out of each rep. And then we can press all the way up. Full range of motion is sick, coming all the way down lengthening, and pressing all the way up. If you are going to shortchange your range of motion by any means, I would reduce the top amount that we're pressing and do more of a 3/4 rep if you want that constant tension bodybuilder style rep where you're kind of pushing up like that. That's where I'd cut the range of motion because this bottom part is the most valuable. So this is going to be better than doing this. It's a lot of triceps, this. Habit number 4 that we need to break is bouncing at the bottom. So we just covered why the bottom part is the most important. And if we're coming down and kind of bouncing at the bottom, like it's really hard, and then you kind of do this little boing, you do that part, you're skimming over the most important part. Just like in the bench press. If you're coming down to the bottom and then bouncing off your chest, you're skimming along the most valuable part of the rep. With the dumbbell overhead press, or if you're using the barbell, it's the same thing. We want to get to this point and milk it for everything that it's worth because it's the most valuable. Come down, even a little pause, kiss the shoulders, drive it up. We don't want this. Last point, tip number 5, is we don't really want to flare our elbows. It doesn't feel great, and it's quite a hard position to press a lot of weight in. Now with a barbell, it's almost impossible to avoid because you're fixed in that pronated position. But you can almost try to corkscrew your elbows forward when you're barbell overhead pressing. So that's unchangeable. When we're using dumbbells, we can come into this neutral position, which is much better to press from, keeping your elbows relatively tight, nice and strong, close to our center of gravity, and pressing up like that. And even if we're pronated, like I said, we don't want to be elbows flared like that. We want to almost kind of bring them in and then press from there. So in terms of elbow positioning, we want to keep them relatively tight. And instead of going over like this, like a motorbike, I actually like to do something called the suicide grip. So we come like this, thumbs over top. This is just what I like to do. I like to go arms just outside shoulder width and then come under. See how my elbows are relatively tight? They're not flared out. So they're relatively tight. Pressing there. I don't want to break the mic. Now we're going to move on to some habits for raises. So ultimately with our shoulders, I believe we have basically 2 functions. We're pressing and we're doing lateral raises. There are other ways to hit the shoulders too, but those are the 2 basic ones. We've covered presses. Now I want to cover raises. Now the first one that comes to mind is we're not going straight out the side. And this is whether we're standing, using cables, using dumbbells, using whatever you want. We don't want to go straight out the side. We actually want to go around 30 degrees in front of the body. That's what optimally lines up the medial deltoid, which is what we're trying to grow with lateral raises. So this is the arm path that we want to take. Slightly out in front of the body. I'm not at a 45 angle, which is here. I'm here. So it's a small difference, but it feels like a massive difference. 30 degrees in front, like that. Now, a lot of bodybuilders, I know you're coming at me in the comments already, but we just don't want to. It doesn't line up best with what we want to target, which is the lateral raises. So you want to make the most of each rep that we do. We do a tons of lateral raises, tons of reps per workout. So we want to do them slightly in front. And that's the first tip. While we're at it, I'm going to give you the second one too. So now that we've got the path right, we want to make our hands strong too. Now, quite a lot of people will try and curl their wrists at the top because it makes them feel like they're getting more range of motion. You're not. You're just putting more tension into your forearms here. And a lot of people will externally rotate or internally rotate, but we just want a neutral hand. So what I like to focus on is getting the top of my hand facing the ceiling. And that's the best way to kind of look at it. And in terms of range of motion, I like to go to about my eyebrows or ears up to here. Not all the way up, that's a different exercise. And not doing these kind of like suboptimal kind of lower reps here. We want to come all the way up to the top, palms facing to the ceiling. When we externally rotate, that actually puts more tension on our anterior deltoid, which is what we work on when we press, and other chest exercises like bench press, incline press, it gets worked then. So we want to target the medial deltoid. If anything, I like to think pinkies up, even though I just want your hands to keep flat because that's a bit of a reminder not to externally rotate and put more tension on the front of the shoulder. Last couple of tips that we're going to do with the lateral raises. We don't want to drop the eccentric reps too quick, but that's a kind of standard that we need to apply to all our reps. But a lot of people, when they're lateral raising, wait, come with me, let me get the dumbbells. A lot of people will just pick them up and drop them, because they think the concentric rep or the lifting of the weight is the most important. And for lateral raises, it is important, but also We got to control it down like this. A controlled 2 to 3 seconds is all we need, right? Yes, it's important to get them up, but once they're there, we want to milk it because it's cool to get them up, but it's even cooler to make the most of the eccentric rep and lengthening of the muscle as it gets more towards the bottom. Now, that's a bit obvious if you've been watching my content for a while. The last point that we need to stop or maybe add into the toolbox of growing the width of our shoulders is using cables. Not just doing dumbbell lateral raises because Arnie and Ronnie Coleman did them. That's cool, but the cables are really awesome. And the reasoning is we can make it harder in different positions. Now, there's been a lot of research around the lengthened muscle at long lengths, lengthened position when we're training. And the thing with lateral raises, it's hardest at the top because that's when gravity is the strongest, when we kind of bring the arm out the side, and it's where the muscle is being shortened or where it's being tensed. But when we lengthen this muscle group, that's actually where we can get more muscle building potential if we do exercises that bias that position. One of my favorite is the behind the back cable lateral raise. So we do a bit of a crossover, and I've shared this and posted this in my workouts on YouTube before. The beauty of this exercise is that the bottom part is the hardest, and this is where the muscle is lengthened. So I'm standing here, I like to get an athletic stance because I feel stronger, and then I'm just coming up. So it's the hardest here, and it's actually the easiest at the top. So it's the exact opposite resistance profile of a dumbbell lateral raise. So coming up, all the way up to the eyebrows and ears, driving hard at the bottom and controlling that eccentric like I said before. So that's just one of the options. There's also a cable Y raise. I'll quickly show you a rep or two there. And this is hardest in the middle position actually. Once again, providing more variation for the medial deltoids. We start with an X and we're coming up like that. Control, control, control. So it's hardest in that bottom to mid position, and it's easiest up here at the top. Once again, the exact opposite resistance profile of a dumbbell lateral raise. But there are other cool options too, and this gets the muscle in the lengthened position. So the real lengthened position is not just down to the side, it's actually to take it further in front of the body or behind the body. So I actually like to go behind, targeting my right here. You can still hold on to the bench, you can lean if you want, or you can just stand here. I kind of like to lean a little bit, get my swagger on in the gym. And now this arm is lengthening as it comes behind my body. So we're going here and we're going up like that. So it's hardest at the bottom and I'm driving, and it's easiest at the top. Now this is awesome because I actually get my arm all the way behind my body to get more lengthening, and then we drive up all the way to the top. So if you're only using dumbbells, you're literally missing out on, I guess, what the science is saying could be better for building wider shoulders. There is 9 tips that you can take to take your shoulder training to the next level. If you want to be coached by me, in my coaching, I literally implement these tips that I'm sharing with the exercise videos that are in my programs. Check out the link in the description or go to teambrockashby.com and see what programs you want. If you want to jump on my email list, I send out motivational emails giving evidence-based tips and motivation about 3 times a week. Links in the description for that as well. And if you want a video that YouTube thinks you're gonna love because you love this one, it's gonna be here floating around. Just click on it and then you get to see more videos of me. How cool.